What if you dated a woman in medieval times? You see her across the village square, your heart races. You want to ask her out. So you walk up, smile, and say hello. Her father immediately accuses you of trying to ruin her reputation. The priest threatens you with public shaming. And if you actually touch her hand before marriage, that's a scandal that could destroy both your families. Welcome to medieval dating, where romance is a business transaction, privacy doesn't exist, and love is optional at best. This is a fictional scenario exploring what courtship and relationships actually looked like for average people in medieval Europe, around 1300 CE. If you want to experience how brutally different and honestly depressing medieval romance was compared to today, subscribe now. Because by the end of this, you'll never complain about modern dating apps again. Let's step back in time. You're a 20-year-old peasant man in rural England. Your village has maybe 150 people. You've known literally everyone since birth. The dating pool consists of perhaps 10 to 15 unmarried women within 5 years of your age. You don't choose who interests you based on personality, compatibility, or attraction. You choose based on who your family can afford and who their family will accept. Her name is Margaret. She's 18. You've known her your entire life. Her father owns slightly more land than yours, which makes this a good match for you and a slight risk for her family. They could potentially do better. You don't just approach Margaret directly. That would be scandalous. Instead, your father speaks to her father. This isn't a conversation about love. It's a negotiation about economics. What land would merge? What animals and tools would constitute your bride price? How many children are expected? What happens if she's barren or you die young? Margaret has almost no say in this. Neither do you, really. But you have slightly more influence. If the families agree, the arrangement proceeds. If not, you move on to the next option. There's no dating phase, no getting to know each other. You've known each other since childhood, but not romantically. That's irrelevant. Once the families agree, you're permitted to court Margaret. But courtship in medieval terms is nothing like modern dating. You can't be alone together, ever. Margaret is always accompanied by her mother, sister, or a family servant. The idea of a man and unmarried woman being unchaperoned is so scandalous that it could ruin her marriage prospects permanently. Your interactions happen in public spaces. You might talk after church. You might see her at the village well. You might exchange brief conversations at the market. Every word is overheard. Every gesture is watched. Physical contact is absolutely forbidden. Holding hands is sexual impropriety. A kiss would be grounds for forced marriage or social exile. Your relationship is entirely verbal and entirely public. The courtship lasts perhaps 2 to 3 months. Not because you need time to fall in love, but because the families need time to finalize the economic arrangements, and the church needs time to post the bans, public announcements of your intention to marry, giving anyone time to object. You learn almost nothing about Margaret's actual personality. You don't know her dreams, fears, or preferences. You don't know if she's funny, intelligent, or kind. You know she's healthy enough to bear children and her family's economic status. That's considered sufficient. Your wedding day arrives. It's not a celebration of love. It's a legal transfer of property, Margaret specifically, from her father's ownership to yours. The ceremony happens at the church door, not inside. The priest conducts a brief ritual. Vows are exchanged, but they're standardized. No personal declarations of love. You likely can't read or write, so you have no wedding vows you've written. The key moment is when Margaret's father physically hands her to you. The symbolism is explicit. She was his property, now she's yours. There's a feast afterward if families can afford it. Bread, ale, perhaps some meat if you're fortunate. The village attends not out of joy but obligation and the promise of free food. Then comes the part nobody talks about in medieval romance stories: the bedding ceremony. The community, your friends, family, neighbors, escort you and Margaret to your home. They literally put you in bed together while making obscene jokes and commentary. This isn't private. This isn't romantic. It's a public verification that the marriage will be consummated. Only after everyone finally leaves do you have your first moment of privacy with your new wife. You're both exhausted, humiliated, and expected to immediately have sex to validate the marriage. This is your wedding night. Romantic, right? You're married now. Margaret lives in your home, the same one-room house you share with your parents and possibly siblings. There are no separate bedrooms. Privacy doesn't exist. Your relationship is defined by work, not companionship. Margaret's day consists of hauling water, grinding grain, cooking, making clothing, caring for children, and maintaining the household. Your day is brutal agricultural labor. You see each other at dawn and dusk. You're both too exhausted for conversation. Affection isn't expected or particularly encouraged. Marriage is a practical arrangement for survival and reproduction. If love develops, that's fortunate. If it doesn't, you endure. Sex happens regularly because children are economic assets, more workers for the family. But it's purely functional. There's no concept of female pleasure. Medieval medical texts literally claimed women didn't experience sexual satisfaction. Margaret's desires are irrelevant. Your desires are assumed. She gets pregnant quickly. Pregnancy is terrifying because childbirth kills women regularly. Medieval maternal mortality rates are roughly 1 to 2% per birth. Over 6 to 8 pregnancies, normal for the era, that's a cumulative risk of 10 to 15% that Margaret dies in childbirth. You're both aware of this. There's no prenatal care, no pain management during labor, no medical intervention if complications occur. When Margaret goes into labor, the village midwife attends. You're not present. Childbirth is women's business. If she survives and the baby lives, you have a child. If she survives and the baby dies, which happens 40% of the time, you try again. If she dies, you mourn briefly and then remarry quickly because you need someone to manage the household. This is medieval marriage, survival-focused, work-intensive, and unsentimental. Here's the complex part. Some medieval couples did develop genuine affection. Letters between married nobles occasionally show real emotional bonds. Some peasant couples stayed devoted to each other for decades. But love wasn't the foundation of marriage. It was a potential bonus that might develop over years of shared hardship. You and Margaret might grow to care for each other. After 10 years of surviving together, bad harvests, disease, the deaths of children, you develop partnership. Not passionate romance, but deep companionship born from mutual struggle. Or you might not. You might live together for 30 years and never particularly like each other. That's normal and accepted. Marriage isn't about happiness. It's about survival, reproduction, and economic stability. The modern concept of marrying for love, choosing your partner based on emotional connection, and expecting marriage to fulfill your emotional needs. That's a recent development, mostly from the past 2 centuries. Medieval people would find our dating culture bizarre and dangerous, choosing partners based on feelings rather than economic compatibility. allowing men and women unsupervised time together before marriage, expecting marriage to make you happy. Insanity. Everything described above is from your perspective as a man. For Margaret, it's significantly worse. She has no legal rights. Once married, she can't own property, sign contracts, or make decisions without your permission. She's legally your property, similar to livestock or furniture. If you're abusive, physically or emotionally, she has almost no recourse. The church says wives must submit to husbands. Her family can't take her back without significant shame. Divorce doesn't exist for peasants. If you die, she might gain some independence as a widow. But she's also economically vulnerable, especially if she has young children. She'll likely be pressured to remarry quickly for survival. Her entire life is defined by men. Her father, then you, possibly sons if you die. She never experiences autonomy, privacy, or self-determination. Modern dating has significant problems, but medieval dating, or rather the complete absence of anything we'd recognize as dating, was a nightmare especially for women. Medieval dating wasn't dating. It was arranged marriage with a brief, heavily supervised courtship period. Romance was optional. Love was fortunate if it happened, but not expected. You didn't choose your partner based on compatibility, attraction, or emotional connection. You chose based on economic necessity and family approval. You had no privacy, no autonomy, and no expectation that marriage would make you happy. Modern dating is frustrating. Apps are exhausting. Rejection hurts. Finding compatible partners is difficult. But you can choose. You can date multiple people to find compatibility. You can spend time alone together. You can build emotional connection before legal commitment. You can marry for love, not economic necessity. Margaret couldn't. Most people throughout history couldn't. The freedom to choose romantic partners based on personal preference rather than family arrangement is historically unprecedented. It's also one of the most important freedoms humans have gained. Now I want to hear from you. After experiencing this fictional medieval courtship, do you think arranged marriages focused on economic stability were actually more practical than modern love marriages? Would you personally survive in a system where you can't choose your partner and privacy doesn't exist? And do you think the medieval focus on marriage as economic partnership, rather than romantic fulfillment, was more honest about what marriage actually requires? Drop your thoughts below. And if this made you appreciate the freedom to swipe left, share it with someone complaining about modern dating. Because as frustrating as Tinder is, it's paradise compared to medieval marriage negotiations.